My name is Julia Guez, and I'm a writer and translator based in the city of New York, though I'm joining you now from Houston, Texas. And I wanted to read to you a poem from Lucie Brock-Broido's collection, Trouble in Mind, which we'll be talking a little bit about in a workshop we do at Poets House, which I hope you can join us for. This is a poem which takes as its title a note that Wallace Stevens wrote for a title he never lived long enough to write. That title was Still Life with Aspirin. Lucie Brock-Broido came upon that title, took it for her own, and here's what follows. There she was, the mother of me, like a lit plant, heavenly, though I was reared to find this kind of visitation impractical. She was an unbearable detail of the supreme celestial map, of which I had been taught that there was no such thing. Stevens wrote that for a poem to be true, it must come from an ever. If you don't fathom that, then you should not be reading this. I was there at ever, and it was mostly poignant, and it was cruel. It was a subjunctive place where touch was so particular, it hurt, like a veterinarian's deep kiss, like a Jerusalem somewhere between fancy and imagination. I was the procuress and the gallows glass, guarding the history and turf of everything intimate. What word would you use to describe me now? Imperishable? Imperishable. The stars appear every night in the sky. All is not well. All deepens. V told me that. All deepens, which is to say nothing, like a mild analgesic, which is to say everything, like Lear's Three Girls, which is to say all of my objects have lost their correlative states, and you want to know why. Because things are just things now, just as everyone said they would be. When I was there, at ever, by the way, I was an ascetic and unfanciful. The land there was all as peaceful as an aspirate, as the West Bank is an eternal circle of chalk and bruise and war. You did not dream I held political ideals, did you? You should not be reading this and all. Remember me in the blousy, humid corridors beneath the Wailing Wall, most sacred place of all. Remember me, wishing, specific, marooned, as one who knew exactly what the ever was and is. A velvet school of courtesan, a gallows bird, all deep, all deeply. Okay. From there, I'm going to read a poem of mine written not only in conversation with Lucie Brock-Broido's Still Life with Aspirin, but for Lucie. And at her invitation, I'm using a couple of words in particular. And in my dedication to her, I'm taking her Still Life with Aspirin and making it a still life with Vicodin. She insisted that this poem open up and be the first poem in my first book of poems, which she helped me put together. Very sadly, she wasn't here to see it come out, but there's probably some deep knowing wherever she is that this is here. And hopefully there's some pleasure in that for her. Still Life with Vicodin. Maybe there is no magic, no technicolor, but inside the seed there is a kingdom. Ask me anything, I will tell you the truth. It is a fatal wound for every wolf and thimble, even the night watchman is not immune. We may as well sing, George, inside the throat. A carriage, a pony, a parachute. I remember reading that poem to Lucie And her first question about it was, who the hell is George? Of course, I don't know. I don't mean to explain this sort of thing to myself or anybody else, but I can promise you he'll come back. I'm going to read one more poem from Lucie and one more poem from my newest book of poems called A Certain Body. And I'll say that while Still Life with Aspirin and Still Life with Vicodin have very explicit, very conscious and intentional connections, these two poems maybe just as close to each other, but they're much more loosely interwoven. And we'll talk about those conscious and unconscious engagements and ways to build and map out possible poems when we're reading and falling in love with other people's poems when we meet in this workshop. For now, let me read from Lucie's last book, Stay Illusion. And I'll read from the first poem in the book. In the New Yorker, this poem would run under the title Noctuary. So some of you read it first that way, but in the book, she called it Infinite Riches in the Smallest Room. Silk spool of the recluse, as she confects her eventual mythomania. If it is written down, you can't rescind it. Spoon and pottage bowl, you are starving. Come closer now. What if I were gone and the wind still reeks of hyacinth? What then? Who will I be? A gaudy arrangement of nuclei, an apple-size gray circle on the tunic of a Jew, preventing more bad biological accidents from breeding in. I have not bred in. Each child still has one lantern inside lit. May the mother not blow her children out. She says her hair is thinning, thin. The flower bed is black, sumptuous in emptiness. Blue-footed mushrooms line the walkway to my door. I would as soon die as serve them in a salad to the man I love. We lie down in the shape of a gondola. Venice is gorgeous, cold. 3 December. Unspeakable anxiety about locked-in syndrome, about a fourth world. I cannot presume to say. The violin spider, she has 6 good eyes arranged in 3s. The rims of wounds have wounds as well. Sphinx, small print. You are inscrutable. On the roads, blue thistles, barely visible by night. And by these, you may yet find your way home. Okay. Last poem. This is the question. I don't think she means it as such. I don't know. What if I were gone and the wind still reeks of hyacinth? What then? This is a poem that seeks to wrap itself around that line and that question. And it's the first of the second book called A Certain Body, which was written March of 2020 to July of 2021, while I worked my way through long haul with COVID. I was in the city of New York for that, but this is a meditation at Callicoon, so set in upstate New York. More and more night pretends it isn't spring. What to make of the daffodils then? Hyacinth here and there, wind and rain. So many blooms. Of course, they won't stay long. None of this will. Not the night, the cold, the city full of swallows, not the bridges and rivers, not the sea. No God born of the sea foam. Not even mothers and sons, this would be unbearable without.